Do you eat, sleep, dream about anything related to eye care?
So do we. This is See What We See with Lauren and Martin. My name's Lauren Cashin.
And I'm Martin Lebeau. We want to share anything that's cool about eye care.
We want you to see what we see. So sit back and enjoy.
Well, good afternoon, Lauren. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Martin. And how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. Welcome to a new episode of See What We See with Lauren and Martin. So, Lauren, we have a special guest today.
You know, you and I talk a lot about the future of the industry and who the major players are. And we've actually had a few conversations with some of the big guys, right? The major players. And today we're going to be talking with the biggest. I don't know when I say biggest, what that entails. But a very, very major player company, EssilorLuxottica, and everybody knows EssilorLuxottica. And both companies have been around a long time, and now they're together, and they seem to be a real driving force in the optical industry worldwide, and especially in Canada here. So, like you and I discussed, we should have the president of Essilor Canada, Essilor North America, come and talk to us.
Yeah, I mean, EssilorLuxottica is definitely the whale of our industry. That's for sure. There's no hiding that. They are the biggest company that's out there. I mean, we've had some conversation with this person in the past, and he's always been very nice, very forthcoming, very honest. He doesn't shy away from answering the right questions. But before I let you introduce our guest for today, Lauren, we have to mention that today's podcast is sponsored by EssilorLuxottica Canada, and they are a great sponsor of the OOA. So thank you so much again to them. And Lauren, please introduce our speaker for today.
Thanks, Martin. So I'm thrilled today to be able to introduce today's guest, Rick Gadd. Rick, why don't you tell us how a young guy from Willowdale, my old stomping ground, could end up being the president of Essilor North America and now the president of EssilorLuxottica Canada and Essilor Instruments North America?
Great. Well, hey, I just thank you very much for having me today. It's a pleasure and an honor. So how did that happen? Yes. You know, it's amazing. So since you touched on it, both my wife and I are from Willowdale. I went to Earl Haig Secondary School. She went to A.Y. Jackson. And so maybe you know each other. That's quite possible. But nonetheless, we were very proud and to be a part of our Canadian family and background. And but we had an opportunity for development purposes for me to move to the U.S., but it was only supposed to be for 3 years, and that's what Nancy agreed to. She said, "Well, if it's only for 3 years, then fine, I'll go with you." And she said, "Otherwise, if it's longer, you know where to find me," kind of thing. So anyway, we made that big leap, and so that was one of the things I didn't follow through. And so for a very long time, we resided in Canada or in the United States, in Chicago. And then, honestly, just one day, I was working for Motorola, where I'd worked right out of university in Canada and then the U.S. And then I got a call one day from an executive recruiter that said, "There's this really interesting company called Essilor, and we'd love to talk to you about it." I still have no indication as to how they found me, why they found me, and what was interesting about me. But I went through that interviewing process, and of course, started with Essilor of America in 2011, and started in a role in managed care and then key accounts, and then just took on incremental responsibilities. And in 2018, I was honored to be elevated to president of Essilor of America. And then subsequently in 2020, when John Carrier retired, I took on also Canada. So I have now Essilor North America. So very, very excited to, again, reconnect with the Canadian team and oversee the business from a total North America perspective. As you know, Essilor and Luxottica merged, and we completed that merger in 2021. And so at that point in time, we started reorganizing the businesses. And Fabrizio Uguzzoni was named as the head of North America for what is essentially EssilorLuxottica Professional Solutions. I'll put in brackets, that's called wholesale, so serving our customers as opposed to a direct consumer. And Fabrizio and I were peers when he was with Luxottica and I was with Essilor. So he took on the stewardship of the business overall. And so my role got redefined at that point to take on the responsibility for EssilorLuxottica Professional Solutions for Canada. And as you mentioned, also very pleased to we have integrated our instruments business. So now I have the responsibility for Essilor Instruments, and actually I shouldn't say Essilor Instruments, it's really the instruments division of EssilorLuxottica for North America, and lots of excitement there. So that's my journey, and so I get to spend about half my time now in Canada and about half my time in the US as well too, because there's still responsibilities here beyond just the instruments and obviously the EssilorLuxottica business in Canada. So hopefully that wasn't too long-winded, but that's how a kid from Willowdale ended up.
Great, thanks.
Well, it sure sounds like you're a busy guy. That's for sure, Rick. Nice to connect with you again. Thank you so much for coming on board today. It's awesome. I mean, Essilor-Luxottica merger is still new for a lot of people in Canada. I mean, we've known about Essilor for many, many years, and now the Essilor-Luxottica. You guys are into, internet. You guys are into retail, frame distributorship now. There's a lot of changes. What's the vision going forward for Essilor-Luxottica in Canada?
So let me start by stating that we are a mission-based company, and that was very true for Essilor and certainly very true for Luxottica. And when I say mission-based, it really is our mission is to help people see more and be more and live life to its fullest. We are a vision company, simply put, and we are vertically and horizontally integrated. And so what we really want to be is an open platform for those who want to participate with us. We're here to grow the industry, grow the market, and address the needs and the unmet needs of the market and the needs that are emerging. So I think that when I think about very specifically about Canada, so what does that mean concretely as we come together as one company? Well, that's sort of my, that is, I shouldn't say sort of, it's absolutely my responsibility is to bring the teams together and create incremental value for our customers and our stakeholders. And when I say that is that, it's really interesting when we visualize the merger, there were very distinct aspects of the business, meaning that lenses had always been kind of separately managed as a part of the business. Frames were always designed separately, but now we bring this all together, and we believe that we can create a really differentiated value, not just for those who wear our products, but for those who partner and participate with us. So our customers, independent eye care professionals, key accounts, we have a way of bringing together and creating incremental value, not just at the product level, but also in the support level, in the training level, and in the marketing level. So we want to make this market bigger than it is, and often think about the success of other industries, and dentistry is one that I find quite intriguing. And dentistry globally is about 3 times the size of what vision is in terms of the total market opportunity. And I'm biased, of course, but I would think that a vision may be perhaps more important than our teeth. So if I was going to lose my teeth or lose my vision, which one would I give up? Well, I can always go and get a pair of dentures, but I'm not sure I can get another set of eyes. So I think for me, vision, that's an opportunity for us to elevate the awareness. And the awareness isn't just about correction, it's prevention. It is also now we're moving into areas of therapy, so therapeutic lenses and so forth to actually change outcomes for people with vision deficiencies, very specifically around myopia and hypermyopia. So there's just this amazing opportunity to elevate the industry or help elevate the industry and be a voice because we are. We recognize that we are a big player in the industry, and that's a responsibility that we have, is to really elevate the awareness, create opportunity, but also to constantly invest and develop new opportunities that are tangential that perhaps weren't realized just a few years ago.
So, as you mentioned, so you guys are involved in everything, horizontal, vertical integration. But when we look at from an optician standpoint, we have independents, we have opticians who work for the chain stores and for independents. So with Essilor being in the retail market also, should we be looking as a good thing that EssilorLuxottica is retail, that compete directly with us? And where do opticians play a big role in this vision? Or are we just a supporting cast here? And just to be blunt, our mergers and acquisitions going to keep on coming to where the independent is going to be, slowly fade away. So do you feel that as opticians, both independents and working for others, so we have a solid place in Essilor's plan?
Well, I'll start with the answers. Undoubtedly, yes, and definitively yes, that opticianry is absolutely a critical part of what we envision as the future. And I would start with the engagement. I think that something that we're particularly from spectacle lens, but it's also true for contact lenses as well too, is that whether it's a fitting of contact lenses or whether it's a spectacle lens, is that we're a high touch industry. And I think that great opticians can impact patients' lives and consumers' lives in an incredible way. There's nothing like getting a great pair of fitting glasses that have been, and also through the lens, under the deep understanding of the lens and the lens technologies that can enhance the vision beyond, sometimes there's good enough and sometimes there's amazing vision, but opticians play a critical role in prescribing that and helping their patients and customers understand the difference as well too. So as I say, it's a very high touch role that our industry plays as a whole, and that's a good thing. And I think that that's where the difference between good and great experiences come into, and maybe sometimes not so good experiences come to play. Now, we also know that patients want to be served in different ways, and consumers want to be served in different ways. So you touched on the fact that, yes, we do have retail. Yes, we participate in e-commerce. And yes, we serve, which is roughly, that's about half the business. The other half is our wholesale business, where we serve directly to opticians, optometry, private optometry, as well as the key accounts, the larger players. So we're up and down and vertically and horizontally. Yes, we are very much integrated, but we segment the businesses because, frankly, I'm responsible for the wholesale business. I'm not measured on the success of retail. I am measured on the success of the wholesale. And so it's important for me to help our customers succeed. So I say that is that, just to round out that point, I think it's an incredibly important part from an industry perspective. It's certainly an important part in terms of, I just think about the total vision of EssilorLuxottica in Canada, and retail obviously plays a huge role in that in terms of opticianry. So I think that, our strong alignment is absolutely critical.
Thanks, Rick. Lauren and I, we always have this conversation and we don't necessarily agree on everything when it comes to that. I mean, the optician role is ever changing. There's been a lot of changes in the past 5, 10, 15 years. We don't know what's going to be in 5 years from now, 10 years from now. We can speculate as much as you want and come up with, great ideas, and some other ideas we're going, what the heck are you talking about, right? But in your view, with all the different players that you've been speaking with throughout your career and the vision that Essilor or Luxottica has in the future, What's going to be the future role of opticians in this industry? And let's say 5 years from now, or even 10 years from now?
Yeah, boy, that's a crystal ball question, and mine may be a little bit foggy, but I'll give it my best shot. I think that one is that consolidation is happening in the industry, but there's also a very robust private practice, and for opticianry, for optometry, it's a very robust environment there. So I think the perpetuation is important to recognize that this isn't just all about consolidation. And yes, consolidation is occurring, and it's occurring at a meaningful rate, but that doesn't mean the entire industry is going to be rolled up. So I think you have to think about it from a segmentation perspective. And so there's going to be a segment that is going to be consolidated. There's going to be a segment that already exists in terms of retail, and then there's going to be a very successful portion of the business that is going to be independent. In each one of those scenarios, I think that opticianry plays a very, very important role. And I think what will be interesting is expanding the scope of the optician's role, because we are, I don't know that we're at a crisis, but we are certainly in a very, very difficult situation in Canada, as well as the U.S., by the way. But in Canada we have a shortage of talent. We don't have a demand issue. We have a capacity issue right now, and so to that end, I don't see that changing. Now, technology is going to help enhance the role of opticianry in Canada for sure, beyond the shadow of a doubt. Through the patient journey, I think opticianry is going to play the scope of. I think it absolutely has to happen that the scope of opticianry has to expand in order to meet this capacity issue. And I think it's going to be really interesting, and I think it's an exciting place from a career perspective for to contemplate. And I think we need to project that more, perhaps as an industry as a whole, to elevate opticianry as a profession for those who are considering, what do I want to do, with my life? I think we'll stop there. But I think the future's bright for sure, but the evolution is going to certainly incorporate. There's going to be more and more in terms of technology.
Thanks. I know I put you on the spot there, Rick, for a little bit, so I appreciate the candid answer, and well done.
Well, yeah, I'm glad to hear that too, that, all my years with the association, that scope of practice is a real key word there. We're always looking to expand our scope, and why not us? Everyone else does it. So I'm thrilled to hear you say that. And I think with technology that's here and on the horizon, that'll help opticians entrench themselves even more in the future. Speaking of which, so you're in the States quite a bit. So I'm wondering, do you see really same parallels between the Canadian market, the American market, the way you have to deal with the major groups, the opticians and the optometrists? And the second part of the question would be, do you see managed care coming here? Because we heard that years ago, and here we are years later, we don't see it. But I see all the commercials on TV. I can't even understand the insurance market in the U.S. with, do you have, blah, 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 Part C on top of your Medicare, this, that. So, A, do you see the Canadian and American market as similar? And B, do you see managed care coming here?
Okay. So I think actually one drives the other in your question, which is kind of interesting the way you asked it. I think one of the distinct differences between Canada and the U.S. is managed care. And so that's point one. Point two is that Canada as a market is a little bit more open than the U.S. Part of that's because of managed care, because there are certain thresholds that you need to be, as a supplier, as we are to the industry, you need to be on formulary for your lenses in order to really participate in managed care in the U.S. for those that are around a commercial managed vision care plan. So let me reel that back a little bit. There's a lot of commonality between the U.S. and Canada in terms of the practice of opticianry and the practice of optometry. And in fact, there are many are going to school in the U.S. and then either going to school in the U.S. and coming back to Canada. Many are getting work visas and coming to Canada. There's a lot of incentive there because, again, we have a capacity issue and there's lots of demand for opticians and optometrists. So the fact is that from an educational perspective, very similar, and that's a good thing. And I think the consistency, and I also see the collaboration in the schools elevating even more and more cross-border. So that's a really important dimension to keep in mind as well too. I think the other areas that I would say are common is that it's still very entrepreneurial. And so that's point two is that there is an opportunity to build a business. And I think it's very similar in Canada and the US, private practice, either owned by opticians or owned by optometry. There's still a great deal of opportunity there. The third element that's also common is consolidation. So we touched on it before. And yes, there are a lot of practices that are being acquired by private equity, both in Canada and the US. Or when I say private equity, businesses that are backed by private equity, to be super clear. Private equity they're not the operators. They have the infrastructure in place, and then they're the investors that allow for this to happen. And I think that because it's been both have been such a fragmented industry that's again a commonality, that there's opportunity to organize the industry a little bit more to be more efficient. And standardization has been something that's been missing in both north and south of the border, which I think that helps move us in a direction of some level of standardization. But now let me talk about managed care. So managed care is a really distinct difference, and I thought it was humorous that you asked me about how I entered into the industry. Well, I knew nothing about optical, and I knew nothing about managed care. My first role with Essilor was the vice president of managed care for Essilor. So I was completely unqualified to do this job. But I think the reality is that, I learned a great deal about managed care. And it really, managed care is structured much the way that healthcare insurance is structured in the US. So you have payers, you have commercial platforms, you have formularies, all this structure kind of exists. And so people are very oriented towards a managed vision care plan that would look and feel a little bit like their primary care health insurance. And so I think that, and it's been a good vehicle, by the way, as far as I think the expansion. So one of the benefits of managed vision care in the US has been the regularity of a comprehensive eye exam, which drives purchase. So that was something that was really important to understand is that there is a differential. As I understand in Canada, I hear different numbers slightly, but it's about where in the US it's about 1.9 years between regular eye exams on average. It's about 2.7 in Canada from what I've read and understand. And so that differential is often driven from the fact that you have a managed vision care plan. People in the US, they have a healthcare benefit that expires every single year. So they're activated to go and have that comprehensive eye exam and go, oh, I don't want to lose my benefit. So that really drives a behavior that I think is a positive thing. It's been beneficial. The second part that is less perhaps beneficial is that, reimbursement, because it's a negotiated rate because they are insurers, right? So they're negotiating a rate in which you'll be reimbursed, which we're a supplier to, so we get reimbursed. And so that's been a bit of the rub. The question is it coming to Canada? I honestly don't know. But we've seen that FYI Doctors is sampling something right now. It'll be interesting to see if that drives a utilization, because that's really what we would hope for. Is in an ideal state is that we could drive utilization to be more regular, and insurance could help trigger that. But what we want to be careful of is that that there's equal distribution in terms of the value, and I think that's where the sensitivity is. So predicting whether it'll come to Canada or not, I think you have to look at primary care first, which is very, very different, as we know, in Canada, province by province. But the fact is that it doesn't operate in the same way. And so I think it would be to just, cut and paste what is happening in the US. I think that would probably be unlikely to be successful. But could insurance play a bigger role? Could there be a bigger subsidy or something of that through the employers? Because it kind of exists today through employers. People can buy a vision care benefit, and it is going to give them a level of subsidization. That could grow, and I think it's an interesting concept. So that's my perspective.
Yeah, because when we speak to some of our colleagues south of the border, and some of their trials and tribulations they have in dealing with some of these managed care labs, it's just like horror stories, and it really reduces the choice, it seems, to the patient. It almost sounds like the quality also of what they're getting. And I guess a fear would be that Essilor, such a large company, it would be to your benefit to partner with a major insurance company. And, it just almost sounds like it makes sense for things to part of this consolidation stuff, tie up the industry. And then, so with managed care, to have people sent to only specific practices, I think it's, there's a fear as an independent. I've thought about it many times over the years. And then you get the large companies like yourselves. Are you guys going to get into bed with one of these massive insurance companies, and that's going to restrict our access to our patients unless we fall in line?
I mean, I don't have visibility to anything that's imminent, but I would say this is that, again, there's always risk in everything, but the reality is, again, is that you have to think about the way healthcare works in the U.S. versus Canada. And so this sort of cut and paste and things like formularies restricting choice, a narrow network of providers, all of these sorts of things, that's the way healthcare works in the U.S., commercial healthcare anyway. You have Medicare, you have Medicaid, you have Medicare Advantage, and so forth. But beyond that, for people who are employed, you have private insurance, and so I work for a company that utilizes one of the big insurers, and that defines where I go and how I utilize primary care. But then I also have a vision care benefit as well too that I utilize. So I mean, again, it's hard for me to anticipate that just cutting and pasting that into Canada would work, because the primary care model is so fundamentally different. And I don't know that would be embraced, and it would create a lot of confusion. It took my wife and I like 3 years to figure out insurance when we moved to the US in 1995. We go, well, we have to go there, we have to do this. It was just really, it was very, very different than our experience growing up in Ontario.
Thank you.
But I'm wondering if we're not starting to see the shift here in Canada, because especially in the past few months, we've started seeing, and I'm not going to name which company with which company, but some of the insurance company have preferred location for you to go shop for your eyewear, and they mention it in their emails and their communication with their plan members. So again, is it maybe the start? Maybe it's not going to be exactly identical to how the states are going to work, but it seems, again, there's a little bit more marketing done behind the scene now to push people a certain direction.
Sure. No, I think healthcare globally is evolving at such a rapid pace. And so I think, the things that we always want to focus on, no matter whether it's for your eyes, your heart, whatever, or just primary care, is that quality of care has to be at the center of everything. And access also needs to be there as well too. Those are big challenges in healthcare in general, and there's certainly challenges with respect to optometry, ophthalmology, and opticianry. Again, we need to focus on quality of care first and foremost, and that's where a comprehensive eye exam, as far as we're concerned, it all starts there, and then tangentially. That's when the opportunities arise to prescribe the best vision possible for the person and what they can afford.
I think also, in talking about all these different things, business, I think we can't neglect to talk about Essilor's philanthropy, because Essilor does quite a bit in that department. And, the association, we try to get involved as much as possible. Martin has been working with Chris Kelm, and Martin's actually been going out and doing some pilot projects. So kudos to Essilor. I think, what do they say? You're not just talking the talk, you're walking. You walk the walk, not just the talk.
Thank you.
I have to give you kudos for that. And I assume that this is somewhere you'll be continuing to grow that department.
For sure. So thank you for recognizing that. And honestly, it's a passion point for our employees as a whole. And when we take our annual review with our employees, always it's off the charts in terms of our mission. And our mission is very tightly tied to our philanthropy and the work we've done there. I can tell you probably one of the most exciting days in my employment since 2011 was the day that I was asked to join the board of the Essilor Vision Foundation. I was just absolutely thrilled because I was so proud of the work that was done, providing access and partnering through the industry to provide access and also provide eye care and eyewear for those who can't afford it. Or for a variety of different reasons, and actually going to schools and participating through volunteerism, and seeing kids, and just when it just the whole experience is very, and it's a very emotional thing, of course, but we're I think it's a responsibility that we have as in the industry, and it's always been a part of our fiber. And it's honestly, it's one of the things that attracted me to the company in the first place. I felt this passion when I was interviewing with the company, and thought, wow, these people actually do, as you said, they walk the talk. And whether it's environmental, whether it's social programs, or whether it's just giving back through philanthropy, and being present in the communities, that's an important aspect. And supporting partners, by the way, also in doing so. We're not just exclusively doing that. Partnering with all the different entities across Canada is important. And just final point, I was delighted to actually be on Parliament Hill with the EssilorLuxottica OneSight team just a few weeks ago, lobbying for Bill C-284, I believe that it is. And we had a great day, and it was cross-functional across all the businesses, all the representation, all the associations from a federal perspective, both for opticianry as well as optometry. And we had a good cross-section of industry as well, too. So I felt like it was a great collaborative day. We sponsored the day, but Bill C-284 is really, really important to just start to define a national strategy for vision care in Canada.
Yeah, I was there myself, and it was nice to see you there, Rick. And I mean, you had so many big players. You had the Foundation Fighting Blindness, CNIB was there. A lot of the different associations from optometry, opticianry, ophthalmology. And you guys were great. This was a great day to meet all the different MPs and senators. I got personally to learn quite a few things that day, which was great. But, you put on these days, and it's a lot of work, and it's always fun. It's always pleasant because you get to discover different things. But after that particular day, what do you do to continue this moving on? What does EssilorLuxottica do to keep it going forward?
So great question, and Martin, it was great that you were there that day as well too, and appreciate you all of the support that you provided during the course of that day. I think so how do we keep the momentum going? I think it's engaging both with all of us collectively, right? We all were introduced to people that we don't talk to every single day, members of parliament, ministers, and so forth, and really advocating for Bill C-284 to make sure that it gets pushed through, but also to be now stewards and engaging, because there's a lot of lack. There's a lack of knowledge. Vision care in general is not top of mind for many of the people, at least I found, that we're interacting with today. But it needs to be more centered around primary care. So to concretely answer your question, I think the answer is that regular engagement with the constituents that we have met with. And I think also, secondly, is it brought together all of us that we normally are all representing. We're all engaging separately, but bringing us together. So how do we, and I'm really throwing this out here, how do we create the right forum for Ontario, the Canadian Association, all the provinces, and all of us just to get together and really strategize, I think maybe on an annual basis. And maybe that's something that we could do, is to sponsor a summit, bringing all the key stakeholders together to say, okay, so how do we perpetuate the right things to happen? How do we share the things that maybe are maybe inconsistent in our beliefs across all the entities? And how do we rationalize those? But then what do we focus on in terms of elevating eye care in Canada? I think that collectively, that'd be pretty powerful.
Yeah, and just to clarify, we talked about Bill C-284 here, and basically Bill C-284 is to make sure that all Canadians have access to vision care. We're not all lucky living in big metropolis or anything like that. But for some people up north, it's a lot harder to get an eye exam, right? To get an optometrist to go up, or to get an optician to go fit a pair of glasses because there's a screw that's missing or anything like that. So it is very important. It's something that definitely touches every single Canadian. And one of the funny things, though, that happened that day, one of the first comment that I got is that, oh, is that something like what the NDP is talking about, dental care for everybody? And no, it's not. It's not the same thing at all. We're not expecting the government to pay for eye care, for vision care for everybody. We just want to make sure that everything's accessible to every single Canadian.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but having said that, Martin, it'd be nice if every Canadian was offered an eye exam. We can talk about the results and the devices needed after, but we got to be preemptive with eye disease. And most people just think, as well, here I'm preaching to the choir. Most people think that if you can see, everything's great. But as we know, whether it's blood pressure, whether it's insidious diseases in the eye, pressures there, you've got to have an eye exam. You can fudge it not seeing great, but God, it's so precious. As Rick, you said before, it's the number one sense that people would be devastated to lose. So it'd be nice if it was a national plan, even though healthcare is provincial. That's where it gets kind of murky, right?
And I think you really touched on something super important that's not often realized, particularly is that having an annual eye exam is a window into a person's overall health and wellness.
Yeah.
And you can identify chronic states or emerging states that can be addressed that might not be captured otherwise, because as much as we could say, that, for many Canadians that they can have a comprehensive physical every single year, I don't know too many that are actually taking advantage of that. But vision is a way to identify, as you said, hypertension, pre-diabetic conditions. Then there's a lot of other chronic states, as well as just that. And that's not even talking about vision itself, although they have implications, obviously, in vision. But I couldn't agree more. And I think starting with that, and the really unfortunate part is that the wonderful thing about Canada is we're such a large land mass and it's such an amazing, beautiful country. But we have people living in remote communities, and that Martin brought up earlier, is that they just don't have access. So how do we ensure that happens? And I think that's really one of the fundamental challenges, but opportunities to elevate healthcare in Canada is through vision.
It's just that it's very interesting and maybe a little bit frightening as well, how many people you speak to that have somebody in their family or their close entourage that knows somebody that went through vision scare or vision problems or didn't have access to vision care in time to develop certain skills or different things. It affects every single person out there. It's scary.
Yeah, for sure.
It's good to hear that Essilor is leading the charge to get people access. And I have to say this, at least, hopefully with technology, opticians will play a bigger role. We'll get out to those remote areas and be able to supply the service necessary and let everyone work to their fullest extent of their training. And as we keep increasing the training, which opticians training has been increasing, and this past year, refraction was included in the national competencies, which is a great skill, whether you're actually performing it or dispensing eyewear and contact lenses. So it all comes back to education, again, something that Essilor really promotes. And, we know that healthy professions are what's great for the public. So, optometry has to remain healthy in order for the public to be able to be taken care of. And again, as I mentioned with philanthropy, Essilor has always been a great sponsor and supporter of the actual profession through the associations, and I want to thank you for that. It doesn't go unnoticed, obviously, and you guys, and hopefully we'll just continue on into the future on this path.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. And again, it's a passion point for us and a long-term commitment. And we've actually reorganized now our philanthropic activity where we had the Essilor Vision Foundation. Now we are bringing it together with OneSight, which was Luxottica's platform for philanthropy, we're bringing it together as one to really elevate and even do more and more together as in totality. So a pretty exciting time.
Well, definitely, they always really looking forward to keep continuing working with EssilorLuxottica and OneSight with Chris Kelm to help Ontarians in the community. We want to be part of the solution, just like EssilorLuxottica wants to be, and we're glad that we're able to work together as a team on that. That's for sure.
Outstanding.
Well, Rick, thank you so much for taking the time to sit with us today. We'll get to know you a little bit more. We obviously, hopefully, our listeners got to know you a little bit more as well, and maybe they'll stop you in the hallway a little bit more, ask you more questions. Part 2 questions of everything that we asked you today. But again, thank you so much. It was great, and hopefully, we get the chance to do this again real soon.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and it was really a pleasure. It's great to get to know you guys even more so. And I think more than anything else is, we're here to support. We want to help grow the industry for the success of everyone. And as they say, a rising tide floats all boats. And it's an exciting time for, I think, our industry as a whole. And not without, but with everything, there's always risk, but the risk creates opportunity. So let's capitalize on those opportunities together. Let's help people see great and look good doing it. And I think that then our mission will be accomplished. So again, thanks for the time today. It was a lot of fun to talk.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. Great to see you again. And hopefully one of these days when you're visiting your old area, we can get together and we can continue talking about the past and the future.
Thank you.
Well, Martin, that was certainly an interesting podcast. Again, as you said in the intro, we were going to speak to somebody who's very forthcoming. Rick is great that way. He's easy to talk to, doesn't shy away from any questions, and he really is good at articulating Essilor's position and their goals.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's a very eloquent speaker as well. I mean, he always knows what to say at the right time, and it's always truthful. It's not a line that he's trying to feed you every time. It's actually he believes what he's telling you, which is great. I have a lot of respect for somebody like that.
Yeah, and I love it because he's a guy from Willowdale. That's where I'm from there. And as he mentioned, his wife went to the same high school that I spent a little bit of time there. At least I was back in the smoking lounge back in the early 70s. But
just a couple of years ago, right, Lord?
So maybe I should have stayed going to school, and my journey would be, not the same as Rick's, maybe a little bit more towards that type. Anyways, I'm very happy with my journey in the optical industry.
But you know what? I've noticed, Lauren, you have a lot of connection with some of our guests through either school or from the area you're from or where you've lived before. We're going to have to start taking some names, maybe putting a book together for that.
Well, and also, as you know, I've been in the industry for a long time. I'm, 50 years. So I'm what they call an ultra-cucker, which means an old person. And and that's why I love it when we get someone like Rick to come out and talk to us. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, no, it was a great podcast. Again, so much information. And different ideas of how he sees the future as well, which is important. Again, I've mentioned in the podcast earlier, you and I, we have these conversations all the time. And we have those conversations with other opticians and other ECP. And it's hard to have that crystal ball to know exactly what's going to happen. But somebody like Rick that is in the position that he's in, he sees a lot. He gets to talk to a lot of people, and it gives them a pretty good idea what the trends are going to be going forward.
And that's why it's so important that we all listen to everybody and never think that, this doesn't affect me. Oh, so-and-so is not my competition. We always have to look to what everyone else is doing to stimulate our own ideas and to see what's going on. None of us live in a bubble. And if you do, you're going to get left behind. So my advice to our colleagues, and I try to take my own advice sometimes, I don't always do it, just really broaden our horizons. Listen to these guys, listen to it, and hope they twig little things in our own minds as to what we should do going forward to stay relevant.
Totally agree with you. Well, hence the reason why we do these podcasts, so we can introduce these people of our industry to our listeners, for them to get to know them a little bit on a little bit more of a personal level, and they get to know how they think and how they see things going forward.
So another one's in the can, as they say.
That's
Looking
right.
forward to our next one.
Thank you again for Essilor Luxottica Canada for sponsoring this podcast, for sponsoring the OOA, and obviously for Rick to come on board today. It was great. Lauren, it was nice to catch up again with you. It was nice to do another episode of See What We See with Lauren and Martin. Till the next one.
All the best, Martin.
You too. Take care.
Thank you for listening to See What We See. This podcast is brought to you by the Ontario Opticians Association. For more information or to become a member, go to our website at www.ontario-opticians.com. For all the latest updates, follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Ontario Opticians Association, on Twitter, OOA_frontline, and on LinkedIn, Ontario-Opticians-Association. Don't miss an episode of See What We See and subscribe to this podcast on your favorite streaming service. Thank you from the Ontario Opticians Association, the voice of opticians for 75 years.